Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Mark Paoletta joins us. We'll talk to him about yet another scandal involving the United States Supreme Court, completely imagined and cooked up by an out-of-control left-wing news media. That's coming up at 3:30. 4 o'clock, Andrew Arthur is here. We're going to talk about the border and the Senate stunts with regards to the border today. And then at 5 o'clock, Aaron Sibarium from the Washington Free Beacon stops by with some critical new reporting on what is going on in medical schools in the United States as the left's ideology is destroying yet another good thing. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. It is a war on God and country. I don't know how else you could view this. The left is now going after symbols of the American Revolution and calls to appeal to heaven itself. Today, a report, or just published yesterday, a report in the New York Times, this is the latest in a series, attacking Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito because he flies symbols of America outside of his homes. He's got a home in our area and apparently a beach home somewhere in New Jersey. And the New York Times has decided to tell everybody about his homes and print pictures of his homes and show that they have flown American flags outside of them. Yes, they have scandalized the American flag. A couple of days ago, we told you about how in the midst of 2021, you had a flag flying at Sam Alito's D.C. area home that was an American flag hung upside down, which is typically the symbol of distress in American history, to fly the American flag upside down. Samuel Alito, Justice Alito, would tell Fox News' Shannon Bream that the reason for that is because his neighbors are out of control. They had put all sorts of curse words in their yards directed at Trump. There are children who live in the neighborhood. They're just awful people to be around. And they were treating Justice Alito and his wife like utter garbage, including referring to her by a word you're not supposed to call any woman, right to her face, right in front of Justice Alito. And as a result, she, not wanting to simply roll over in the midst of that fight, decided to express to her neighbors her frustration by hanging a flag as a symbol of distress. Again, an American flag. Since then, what has the media done with that? What did the New York Times do with that? They claimed that means she is a stop the steal insurrectionist because some people on January 6th flew American flags upside down as symbols of distress as they were around and inside of the United States Capitol building. Ipso facto, she's an insurrectionist, and therefore Justice Alito can't be involved in any case that involves, quote, our democracy. Are you following the logic of this? It's crazy. It's crazy. And when it first broke, we talked to Mark Paoletta about it. We're going to talk to him again about the latest version of this today. The New York Times with a fresh report now on Justice Alito's beach house. They went and they checked Google Street View. They wanted to stare at his home and tell you what kind of flags he has outside. And outside of his home, apparently, according to the gigantic photo they've put in the New York Times, he has got a flagpole that looks like what you might consider a maritime flagpole. It's a kind of flagpole that looks like a cross. It's got a couple of flag pulleys on it. And on either side of it, it's got a variety of flags. It has, let me see here. Let me verify the flags that are up here. There's I believe it's a Philadelphia Phillies flag that's flying here. Yeah, a 2022 Phillies flag is flying out there. A Long Beach Island flag is also flying because that's apparently where the house is. And then right at the top, and it's a reminder here, the New York Times is just doxing the justice. They want everybody to know what island he lives on particularly. And right at the top of the flagpole is an American flag. Now, not everyone's going to reflexively recognize this American flag, but if you are as learned as a Supreme Court justice, my guess is you're going to be very familiar with this. It's a flag called it's called the Pine Tree flag. But right at the top of the flag, it says an appeal to heaven. It's a white flag. Right across the top of it, it says an appeal to heaven. And right in the middle is a pine tree, a green pine tree, white flag, an appeal to heaven written at the top. Now, in American history, this flag has a place. And it emanates out of George Washington. The pine tree flag, or also known as the Appeal to Heaven flag, was one of the flags used during the American Revolution. The flag, of course, features a pine tree with the motto, an appeal to heaven, or less frequently, an appeal to God. It was originally used by a squadron of 6 frigates that were commissioned under George Washington's authority as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army in October of 1775. It is also the official maritime ensign for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. In other words, whatever boats are a part of that state's fleet fly this flag. Though the script, an appeal to heaven, was removed in 1971. It was used by state Navy vessels in addition to privateers sailing from Massachusetts. So here's a little bit more information for you. This comes to us from a book called Standards and Colors of the American Revolution. It's a history of all of these flags that flew in that era. And it says this: in September of 1775, the Americans launched 2 strong floating batteries on the Charles River, Massachusetts. And in the following month, they opened fire on the enemy in Boston. In October, Washington also commissioned 2 schooners, the Lynch and the Franklin, to cruise the bay. When speaking of these schooners, Colonel Joseph Reed, Washington's secretary, in a letter from Cambridge, Massachusetts, to Colonels Glover and Moyland, dated October 20th of 1775, said this, quote, "Please fix upon some particular color for a flag, and a signal by which our vessels may know one another. What do you think of a flag with a white ground and a tree in the middle? The motto, an appeal to heaven. This is the flag of our floating batteries." By February 1st of 1776, a total of 6 such armed vessels of the United Colonies of North America had been commissioned by Washington. In April of 1776, the Massachusetts Council passed a series of resolutions for the regulation of the sea service, among which was the following, quote, "Resolved that the uniform of the officers be green and white, and that the colors be a white flag with a green pine tree, and the inscription, an appeal to heaven." So, of course, this flag has a place, a very important place in American history. It is from the birth of our nation, an appeal to heaven. And the left hates it. They hate it. Today, the reason it's a scandal is because they say some of the January 6 people were carrying it inside the United States Capitol building, outside of it as well. Now, if that's the standard, there is no flag that represents America that Sam Alito is allowed to fly outside of his house. The American flag as we know it today, with all 50 stars, was also flying in the hands of some of the people who went into the Capitol building on January 6th. The Betsy Ross flag was also flying at the Capitol building, in the Capitol building, by the people who walked into the Capitol building on January 6th. The Gadsden flag was also flying in that very same crowd. These flags, based on this logic, are all entirely off limits to a sitting United States Supreme Court justice. Does anyone realize how stupid this whole thing sounds? But I have to believe that they have a special animosity here for a flag that represents America that says an appeal to heaven. An appeal to heaven. And the reason for that is because the left has worked so hard for so long to excise a notion that there's a greater power above us. In fact, the state is the greatest power in their view. And they should have the ability to exercise all of that power, to dictate your life's outcomes. And so when someone comes along and says, no, actually, there is a God, and religious liberty is important, we should protect it, boy, do they want to destroy that person. And that includes Justice Sam Alito. Justice Alito gave a speech to Notre Dame back in 2022 talking about religious persecution and religious liberty. I've pulled some of the audio for you here. Here's what Justice Alito had to say on this subject.
Religious persecution is alive and well in the world, and in many places it is a violent life and death thing.
A little difficult to hear. Religious persecution is alive and well in the world and is a violent life and death thing in many places.
Religious liberty is under attack in many places because it is dangerous to those who want to hold complete power. It also probably grows out of something dark and deep in the human DNA, a tendency to distrust and dislike people who are not like ourselves.
Religious liberty is under attack. This is the most important element because it's dangerous to those who want to hold power, said Justice Alito. Now, you should know the flag in question, this appeal to heaven flag, this pine tree flag, this flag of George Washington's Navy, flew outside of Justice Alito's home in 2023. It was apparently the photos they have are from August of 2023. They have two pictures. One of them is a Google Street View photo. The other is from some jackass neighbor who took a picture and sent it to the New York Times and decided to turn this into a full-blown scandal. And just because I care about you and this story and I want to get to the bottom of it, I actually jumped on Google Street View. I said, let me get a look at this neighborhood. What kind of flags are people flying? And sure enough, all over the place, except for whoever leaked the damn photo to the New York Times, there are American flags all over the neighborhood. People who love America, flying the flag proudly. There are Gadsden flags, in fact, flying in the neighborhood. Are they insurrectionists? Are they trying to tear down the country? Are they subverting democracy, subverting the republic? No, actually, it looks like they kind of love living here. Especially there. Looks like a nice community. And so Justice Alito and his family, they decide to fly an American flag. Don't get it twisted. This is an American flag and are now under attack for it. Of course, the effort in all is to delegitimize the United States Supreme Court. The left has outrage that they do not control it right now, that they can't dictate outcomes with a single branch of government. It's the only one they still need, and they don't have it, and they're angry about it. And so they make up these lunatic scandals. Over on CNN, this Soros-funded hack called Norm Eisen. Am I mentioning this guy a lot this week? I am mentioning this guy a lot this week. Norm Eisen. Norm Eisen, who is involved in, there was an Associated Press piece earlier this week that claims that Republicans are election deniers and they're all over Congress based on a new report that came to us from some organization. The organization is run by Norm Eisen. Norm Eisen co-founded a group called Crew, a left-wing organization that got its money from George Soros. The whole thing is a scam. And when they say they're documenting election deniers in Congress, there's no mention of Jamie Raskin. There's no mention of Pramila Jayapal. There's no mention of, you can go down the list, every Democrat who's objected to every election this century for any Republican, they're not listed at all as, quote, election deniers. It's reserved for Republicans because it's a left-wing organization. So Norm Eisen, who goes on CNN, he now says that because the New York Times has published this picture of this flag, an American flag, flying at Justice Alito's home, well, it's a court in crisis.
I think the court is in an absolute ethics crisis. This latest expression of an apparent opinion.
What opinion?
Siding with the far-right activists, including those who flew this flag,
like George Washington,
on January 6th, comes on top of undisclosed luxury vacations by Justice Alito, also
luxury
Justice
vacations.
Thomas.
I've got to know that you have to tell me about every vacation you take.
Justice Thomas's wife, a witness in the January 6 cases.
We're not allowed to know the people who visit with Joe Biden at his Delaware Beach home. Do you know that? There's no data on that. The White House provides nothing. Every time we want to know, hey, what's the president doing as he's on vacation 40% of the time? Tell us, who's meeting with him? You don't get to know. But we do need to order invasive searches of every Supreme Court justice who we don't like and make sure we track every single place they go on vacation. Whatever rest stops they make, whatever cheeseburgers they purchase, we need all of it.
And now these two flag photographs expressing that opinion under federal law.
What opinion?
If there's
the opinion that the New York Times invented, you should see the headlines on this stupid story today. New York Times, Supreme Court Justice Alito's beach house displayed appeal to heaven flag. This is the one they actually have on the in story. Another provocative flag was flown at another Alito home. You see, it's a sustainer for a scandal that they've invented in their head. What else here? MSNBC, second flag takes Justice Alito's mess to a striking new level. MSNBC. Let's see here. New York Magazine, Alito's appeal to heaven flag blows up his ethics defense. What? He flew an American flag outside of his house. Axios, second flag flown at Justice Alito home, linked to January 6 rioters, New York Times says. What a complete and utter scam. We're going to talk to Mark Paoletta about this coming up. He's close with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. He has seen this for years, the way the left operates, the way they try and destroy good people, and the threat they really pose to our republic. All the more reason you should be flying a flag that says an appeal to heaven, a great American flag. It's 3. All right, let's take some calls. I've got Jeff Hagerstown, line 1. Jeff, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yeah, good afternoon, Vince. Thank you for taking my call. I share your feelings, and I'm outraged about this whole thing. Just when you talk about moving the goalposts, the mainstream media always seems to lower the bottom of the cesspool when it comes to digging up stuff and making something out of nothing to smear the Republicans. It's like, dude, and CNN, give me a break, man. They are the HMS Titanic. Have you seen their ratings lately? They're in the tank.
I saw something today. It was like their ratings are as low as they've been since, I believe, 1992. I think and that's right when the network started, isn't it?
No one's watching that garbage, and their savior, Caitlin Collins, or whoever it is. No one's watching that crap. I mean, this just goes to show the mentality and the utter. I mean, they can't. How far low can you go?
They're inventing scandals to the point that they're scandalizing flying American flags now. They are really something else. Hey, more on this in just a moment. I'm going to be joined by Mark Paoletta from the Center for Renewing America. He is his good friend, longtime friends with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. I'll get his reaction to this vile attack on decent men. It's ahead. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Andrew Arthur will join us from the Center for Immigration Studies as the left once again tries to bring some amnesty to illegal immigrants in our country. And Aaron Sibarium is here at 5 o'clock with a stunning new report on how the left has destroyed one of the leading medical schools in the United States. Future does not look good for medicine if it continues like this. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. The left losing its damn mind over the fact that Supreme Court Justice Sam Alito flies symbols of America outside of his home, apparently flying a flag dating back to the American Revolution outside of his beach home in New Jersey called the Pine Tree flag. It says an appeal to heaven at the top. There's a green pine tree right in the middle of the white flag. And it's associated with George Washington himself. But to the left, that means it's a scandal. Here to discuss, Mark Paoletta, senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America and the co-editor of the book, Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. Mark, good to have you back here, sir.
Hey, Vince. Good afternoon.
Well, they keep showing up outside of all these justices' homes. They're now taking pictures of them and turning symbols of America into a scandal, Mark.
It's shocking how unhinged the left is, right? They go and illegally picket in front of justices' homes and threaten them and try and assassinate them. And they're looking for flags, American flags, U.S. flags with a rich tradition, as you said, going back to George Washington. And as you know, President Trump pointed out, right, when they started tearing down statues in, 1920, that they're going to be coming for the statues of George Washington, of Thomas Jefferson, right, of the American flag. There was a story, I think, was posted, in Long Island, right, where people who fly the American flag, right, are somehow signaling that they're, MAGA Republicans or whatever it's supposed to in their fevered brain, supposed to signal. It's an American flag. We love our country, right? Just like these flags right here, right? That's what it is. The left wants to look for some stray example or whatever it is to say this is what somehow it's dangerous.
Yes, and the thing that they're connecting it to is January 6th. They keep saying, oh, this is a flag that flew at January 6th. Well, that's a stupid thing to say because the American flag was at January 6th. And the Gadsden flag was at January 6th. It's like preposterous. So you're saying all of these flags are now out of bounds because people carried them to the Capitol?
Right. You remember the Zena Bash during the Kavanaugh, right? She had her fingers in a position, right, just resting on her knee, I think. And somehow that was some kind of white supremacy signal. So they create these fantasies, and what's crazy, right, Vince? And I put something up on X today. When you look at the Democrats, and what it's supposed to point out too, right, is that what they're doing here is that Sam Alito supposedly has these biases, and therefore he has to recuse from these cases, right? That's what's going on here. Is that like clockwork for the past several years, now that the left has lost control of the Supreme Court, right, thanks to the appointments by President Trump, that every year, right, it's been nonstop. But if you think about, back in 2022. You had the Dobbs decision coming up, right? Everything like literally, melted down with the unprecedented leak. Pickets outside, protests, whatever you want to call them, outside the Justice System, assassination attempts on Justice Kavanaugh. The next year, right, was as it led up to it was the affirmative action case, right? These are like the pillars of the left's world: abortion and race-based affirmative action, right? Horrible stuff, right? Pernicious stuff. And now this year, what is it? The Trump cases, right? The 2020, the presidential immunity. And what they do is they ramp up. Like, just think about this story, Vince. How long did Jodi Kantor have these photos? Do you think this just happened, that she just came in contact with them or possession of them in the past few weeks? I mean, these photos, this was a 3-year-old story, right, with respect to the original story, right, yeah. In January 2021. And, they are doing it to attack the Supreme Court and the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. And it's dangerous, and it's almost comical about how hypocritical the left is. I just put up some stuff showing Ruth Bader Ginsburg accepting awards, going to the Women's Democrat National Club, which mission is to elect Democrats to office. Yeah. And she was honored with an award, right? Did anyone have any problem with her literally, being honored and going to a partisan organization to receive an award? I'm unaware of any justice doing that at all as a justice.
It's amazing, and we can't be that far from like attacks on, like, so if Justice Alito has a crucifix up in his home, that's going to become a story now too. You know what I mean? It's like, did you know he's flying this controversial symbol inside of his home? We're really reaching, I think, dangerous levels of both stupidity and especially religious bigotry. I feel like there's a special religious bigotry baked into this story. The fact that the flag itself, again, dating to Washington, an American tradition, it says an appeal to heaven on it. The left has special animus for this.
Yes, you're exactly right. And I hope the sales of this flag, and I was vaguely aware of it, but come into focus, I just purchased one.
We did too. We have one coming to the office. Corey told me today, he's like, hey, I bought one. It's coming to the office. So yeah. We're on top of it too here.
I made sure mine's coming tomorrow. But, we need to take back those symbols. You know what I mean? Like, the left wants to, this is what the left does. They want to control. They want to destroy. They want to stigmatize because they say it's this way, right? They say it's wrong. And we get to tear you down. No, this is a great flag with great, traditions in our country, just like the Don't Tread on Me flag, right? The Gadsden flag, just like, in my book, you mentioned my book, Created Equal, Clarence Thomas's own words. Guess what? There's a photo of Justice Thomas from his EEOC days standing in front of a Gadsden flag.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Okay, let me say, can we get the breaking news alert out? Do we have a sounder or something that we can play? This is a news scandal as just shared with us by Mark Paoletta. Mark, tell us more. What kind of flag was it?
A Gadsden flag. It's a great flag, and Justice Thomas it's in the photo section of my book, and it's wonderful, right? And just like standing in front of the American flag is wonderful, and that's why, again, I hope your listeners, I was worried that if I went on Amazon, it would be sold out, but I was able to buy one. It's just outrageous. and despicable what the left does. I know the Alitos, both of them, they're both fine people, right? They're great Americans. They're great patriots. They're Sam and his wife, but Sam as a Supreme Court Justice Alito, is an ethical, honorable man. And that's what's so outrageous about that. When you compare, and I keep, going back to Justice Ginsburg, like, she could do anything she wants. I just, she's giving an interview to Adam Liptak of the New York Times in 2016, trashing the heck out of a presidential candidate. She's clearly trying to influence a presidential election. And Adam Liptak writes it up as, wow, she's so charming. She's so like, a breath of fresh air that she's talking about her political opinions. It's like completely unethical, right? And yet his story, and I've never seen anything he's written critical of her attacking a presidential candidate, and then, of course, never recusing, right, on the Trump taxes case. In that rampage she went on in 2016, she trashed Trump for not releasing his taxes. Guess what? She has a case in 2020 on what? Whether Trump has to release his taxes. Did she recuse? No, she voted against him. Of course. Did anyone criticize her for not recusing? No. This is the gaslighting that the left does. Like, if you're a liberal, you can't do anything wrong. Anything you do, we will defend or we will ignore. If you're a conservative, we will turn everything you do,
yes,
right, everything, even when it's legal and ethical, right, into a scandal. I love Justice Thomas, as you know, American hero. He gets involved with a group called the Horatio Alger Association, right? They're disadvantaged kids, right, that get scholarships from this great organization. He spends hours upon hours meeting with these kids, right? I've been there. Like, for 3 or 4 hours, he's standing talking to every single kid. Guess what? The New York Times turns that into he wants to be around wealthy people, right? It's disgusting what they did. Literally, it's disgusting what they do. I saw Norm Eisen on this, whatever it was, MSNBC, trashing the courts in an ethical crisis, right? Mentions, Justice Thomas receives gifts from his friends, right? Doesn't mention, of course, a recent report, right, in the New York Post. Joe Biden, again, I think last year he went to 4 separate mega donors, billionaire donors' homes. He's not friends with them. He kicks them out of their house and stays there for free, right, including David Rubenstein's place up in Nantucket, $30 million home, I think, right? Doesn't report it on his forms. Right? This is not a friendship. This is not personal hospitality. This is, I'm just taking over somebody's home because I'm a grifter, and I'm going to stay for free. I'm not going to report it. And the only place that's going to be reported on is the New York Post, right? And then Norm Eisen's talking about, justice is accepting gifts and how we're in crisis. It's a joke.
Well, to the left, corruption is casual. Corruption is casual. It's every day. It's totally fine. There's nothing scandalous about it. Don't you bother reporting on it. In fact, don't you dare report on it. And it just keeps happening. In fact, there's a story coming up that I'm probably going to get to in more detail, but the New York Times has another piece today claiming that because Donald Trump met with oil executives recently and suggested to them very strongly, hey, you should be giving money to my campaign because if anybody's going to help your industry, it's me. I'm going to get the oil flowing. The New York Times reports today that the Senate is launching an investigation into Trump for this, for doing something that is good for America. If he gets the oil flowing, that would be great for this country. The Senate wants to investigate him now as if he's engaged in some sort of unethical quid pro quo. And I'm watching as goobers like Sheldon Whitehouse are announcing this. And I'm like, wait a second. You guys are bought and paid for. The idea that somebody else is corrupt and it's not you is absurd, Mark Paoletta.
So I missed this story. I have to get up. You're always on top of the news more than me. But if it's Sheldon Whitehouse, Sheldon Whitehouse, first of all, the Senate, right, Congress in general, the Senate has no conflict of interest laws that apply to them. They exempt themselves, right? And guess what? Sheldon Whitehouse has a wife who's a contractor for these companies, right, in the environmental space. There's one, I think it's called Running Tides, where she's a contract. I think she gets like $200,000 of many companies that she works for. And it has to do with, I think one of their projects is like kelp and carbon capture in the water. Guess what? Sheldon Whitehouse introduced legislation last year. I think she joined this group in 2022. He introduced legislation that would provide funding for these types of organizations, okay, and these types of projects, okay? Yeah. So here is Sheldon Whitehouse, like absolutely, doing things to help his wife's companies and interests. He went to their organization and gave speeches. He wrote articles on their website, and and he has the audacity, right, to talk about the ethics of the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
take a
look,
look
this
in
is
the mirror,
this is
right?
real. Just to be clear, here's the news today. This is what I just quoted to you. It's about, again, President Trump meeting with some oil executives recently, and apparently, reportedly, encouraging them to help his campaign out. Saying, look, stop wasting money lobbying Biden. What a waste of money. That's so stupid. Just help me get elected and your industry is going to do great. And here's what the New York Times says. In letters sent Thursday morning, that's this morning, to top executives of 8 oil companies and a trade group, the chairman of 2 Senate committees, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island and Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, sought details of the executives' participation in the meeting and accused them and Mr. Trump of engaging in a quid pro quo. That's where we are.
Wow, that's amazing. I'll have to read that. That's just stunning. That's stunning. I'll also say I saw this, Vince. This attack on the court, and trying to destroy the court and all that. I think it was a Harvard-Harris poll that's just out this week. The court's at 52% approval rating, which I think is the highest it's been in many, many years.
I think that's like more popular than Taylor Swift. That's pretty popular. 52%?
Yeah, it was 52%. It was 37 and 14, I think, of whatever my math is there. But it's very favorable and favorable. It was a 52% favorable, very favorable view. Just out Harris Harvard poll, I think it is. And of course, the Senate is down in the 20s or the 30s. Usually they're down to like 16% or something like that. And the media, of course, is down below that. So again, Americans need to take back their country from this, assault on it from the left, right, from the media, going after the United States flag, going after the Appeal to Heaven flag, going after the Gadsden flag, all of these things to tear down our country, right, to tear down these symbols in an effort to destroy an institution, in this case, the Supreme Court. And, what I'm encouraged by is that these justices are strong, right? They're not going to buckle. I think led by Justice Thomas in the example he has set over 32 years. He's our 10th longest serving justice, and in 4 short years he'll be our longest serving justice. But it's a despicable effort to kind of delegitimize the court, right? And Sam Alito, in my view, is not going to recuse from any of these cases. He doesn't have to. He has a duty to sit. There's no conflict of interest, and the court will then, the Democrats will then try and pack the court, right? As they are unable to get them to recuse and get their way, they will then start to continue to make the case that the court needs to be increased so that they can put 4 liberals on it in order to control the court, as they did for 50 years. Yeah.
Look, it's the same party that abides people or supports outright people taking down American flags and lifting Palestinian flags all across our country. Here they are trying to scandalize the flying of an American flag outside of a Supreme Court justice's home. To your point, it's by any means necessary. It's all about the power. Mark Paoletta, thank you, sir, as always. Really appreciate our conversations. Thank you. To the phones we go. Al's in Bowie. Line 3. Al, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Great
Hey, sir.
to talk to you again.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I was just saying to your screener, I'm sorry I don't know his name, but
Corey.
very nice gentleman. Thank you, Corey. I'm thinking we need to stop talking about these leftists as though they're stupid and, comical and to be laughed at. They are. But we also need to recognize that they're voting for people who are destroying us, are keen on destroying us, and they're going to continue as long as we don't take them seriously and counterpunch in some way.
Yeah.
And my suggestion is maybe we could talk about, they're trying to destroy us, and what are we going to do about it? Mm-hmm. And then we could get some lively calls in saying, well, here's an idea. Here's something that we can do legally. Here's how we can protest. Here's things that you can do and not get in trouble. Mm-hmm. And, obviously we're not going to get you in trouble, talk about violence or anything, but what can we do?
What is within our reach? Then that's a perfectly good question, one that we try to answer all the time. And I'll tell you one thing, they're never going to rob me of my sense of humor. I'm going to make fun of them at every turn. No. I have an obligation to do that, Al. And one other piece here. There's a difference between the sheep and the wolves here. There are these wolves, you're right. This is intentional. They're not playing around. They're not morons about this. They don't care. It's about power. But there are lots of people out there who are taking them seriously who are being misguided, and they should know that what they're being told is some of the dumbest possible stuff. Don't fall for it. Thanks, Al. I appreciate the call and the listenership. All right, stay with us. I've got Andrew Arthur joining us just moments away. We're going to talk about the left's latest efforts to clear the way for illegals into America.